All right, guys. Today we have on an absolute music legend, Tad Doyle, nicknamed the godfather of grunge. He fronted the band Tad, which many consider the first grunge band, or definitely one of them. The band toured with Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, Primus, among others. So after the band broke up, Tad had some other bands, but now he makes music under his full name, Thomas Andrew Doyle. It's really cool stuff, very dark and emotional. We're going to talk about his latest solo record, his plans for the future with his music, the Seattle music scene, being in the movie Singles, and so much more coming right up.
Hi, Chuck. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, man.
So, do you prefer Tad, Thomas? What is your preferred at this point? Does it matter?
Either way, the new record's under Thomas Andrew Doyle, but you can call me Tad. Whatever works for you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I know your Instagram is still Tad as well, and so I was like, but then yeah, like you said, the album is Thomas. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I guess yeah, it's kind of like people call me Charles or Charlie, and so, but I prefer Chuck, I guess.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I want to get into the new album and music, and if we can talk a little bit about Tad as well. But before we get into music, we got to talk Seattle because I'm born and raised in Seattle. You moved there a while ago, and you're currently still there, from what I understand, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Moved here in 1986 and been here ever since, except for a couple of years in San Diego.
Oh, wait, when was that? That sounds amazing. I love San Diego.
Yeah, me too. It was 2004 to 2006, I think.
Oh, okay. Was that for music or personal thing or?
Yeah, it was for my wife. I met her and I decided to move down south where she had a home and we built a life together starting there and then decided that we wanted to move up north to Seattle because I missed all the greenery and the clean fresh air that we have here and
Yeah.
began romanticizing about the smell of the moss and everything. And I love San Diego. Don't get me wrong; it was an amazing experience, and I loved it.
But you love Seattle more. That's more at home for you.
Well, I could be okay anywhere now. I think, but it was definitely. Um, I like I said, I romanticized about the smell of the air and the greenery. That's kind of I love that aspect of it. There's not as much greenery in San Diego. It's kind of hot and dry.
For sure. Yeah. I moved to Arizona and I've lived here a while. And yeah, there's definitely pluses and minuses, but that is definitely one thing I miss. I know exactly what you're talking about. The smell of like after the rain, because then it rains here, it smells like, it's weird. It smells kind of like dirt. It's very bizarre. But in Seattle, when it rains, yeah, it smells like this, like pine trees and like evergreen. It's really hard to explain to people if you haven't been there.
Yeah, it's totally like that. That's the best description I've heard too.
Yeah. But what about just like favorites in Seattle, like coffee shops, restaurants, stores, landmarks, things to do, stuff like that?
Well, let's see. There's for coffee. There's a little place that used to be on Broadway, and I can't remember the name of it. It's Vivace,
Hmm.
and that was good stuff. I'm not a fan of Starbucks. I think they really ruin the coffee because they cook it at too high a temperature and it kind of makes it bitter and sour. And I'm not a fan of the big, huge corporate model for anything. So
Agree with you there.
like to,
Absolutely.
yeah, I like to stay local and support smaller businesses.
Yeah. One of
But
I don't know. I guess it's not really a small business. It is kind of more corporate, but it's like Seattle corporate is the Taco Time restaurants. Do you love Taco Time as much as I do? Cause that's like one of the things I miss the most about being in Seattle.
I used to love Taco Time big time. And we had them in Boise where I grew up as well. But I kind of shied away from that, the fast food model altogether, period. I don't go to any fast food places at all. So
wow.
it's
Good for you.
just trying to stay healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems, I heard you say something like you lost, was it 100 pounds or something like that?
Yeah, just dipped below 100 pounds that I've lost. And it's been a long haul, man. And certainly stair stepping up and down here and there, but it's taken quite a while, 4 or 5 years.
Do you use the stair stepper, or you walk the stairs in your house, or?
Yeah, I have a couple different stairs in my house, but no, I don't go to a gym or anything. I just go for walks around the
Hmm.
neighborhood, and that's been good enough for me.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think that kind of leads into with the physical health, but also the mental health, and that's kind of like what this new album is about your own mental health. Isn't that kind of what inspired it?
Yeah, absolutely. It started with me. The pandemic was definitely a change for everybody, and the isolation of not being able to do things that way you normally would, and having to wear a mask everywhere. And to an extent, I still wear masks here and there, even though the mask mandate has been lifted. I think it's a healthy thing, especially if you're in a room with a bunch of people. But uh, yeah, I mean the mental health aspect. I wasn't sleeping very well. That was part of it, and I was having a lot to do of living in the past and living in the present, living in the future rather, in my mind. Um, and I wasn't staying present in the now, which is something I'm practicing and will practice for the rest of my life. I don't think nobody ever arrives at that, but I had a lot of depression and I wasn't getting any sleep as a result, and severe anxiety, which I went and sought a mental health professional to help me with and to go over some things and realize some things that were hindering my sleep. I would go to bed around 10 or 11 and wake up stone cold awake at 2 a.m. and not be able to go back to sleep again. So I wasn't getting good REM stage sleep, and people can go nuts if they don't have proper REM. And so I decided, man, I'm gonna make this record. I'm gonna get rid of these demons by putting it into the music. And since then, I've practiced the noble art of silence in my head and being present in the moment. And that's really all I have. I don't have the past. The past isn't anything you can do anything about, and the future never comes. So, the future worries about itself. It doesn't need me to worry about it.
Yeah.
And
Because what
that's
wasn't part of it was saying you were worried that you were kind of getting older and getting anxious that you weren't going to be able to release all this music that you wanted to make.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a big part of it. And as a result, I took time off from recording other people's music for a few months and was able to complete a lot of projects that I've had in the hopper for quite a while. One of which is Forgotten Sciences was in the works for 2.5 years, and I finally was able to finish it and get it out. I also had Eternal Nameless came out this year on Bandcamp only, and another release which I can't remember the name of right now because I'm just saying so busy. I don't even know whether I'm coming and going most of the time. So
Yeah. So tell me, the Forgotten Sciences, what is that? The title is intriguing to me. What does that mean exactly?
well, I've discovered a lot of uh, meditation practices and outlooks on things and how to quiet my mind. And that's basically what it is like I used to do that. I'm an addict that has recovered. I'm clean and sober for 23 years now. Um, and that was part of it. I was doing a lot of that type of thing, mindful mindful presence and just trying to stay quiet and let the monkeys swing through the trees, so to speak, of the mind, and eventually, not silence them, but realize that it's just a bunch of junk that you hear and self-talk that isn't helpful. I've suffered from depression all my life, and part of that is, just believing the negative self-taught that I've had in my head all this time. And through working this out with a mental health professional and channeling all this energy that could have been potentially a negative thing into a positive thing, I was able to make this record.
That's amazing. Yeah, I don't know a lot about music. I mean, I've done a little bit of music, dabbled here and there, but I can't talk like time signatures and that kind of stuff. But I can talk the emotion. And when you listen to this record, I mean, it makes you feel, sad and afraid and curious yet I mean, it's almost like you can't turn it off because it's very powerful stuff. Was it cathartic to make the record and to write and record it?
Definitely. And I like that you noticed that. And that's the way I like to identify with music too, is not as a technical thing, but as an emotional and a, for lack of a better word, a spiritual experience. And that's where I've always wanted to come from, and I'm continuing to explore for my music. Um, there is some horrific things that I've gone through. I'm not alone in that. There's a lot of people have, uh, I don't know, I can't speak for anybody else, but my self talk was always been degrading and diminishing to me and probably part of that might come from a less than quote unquote perfect childhood. My father was pretty abusive mentally. And that showed up, and part of that is, I've recognized through a mental health professional getting this to me, is that I realized that a lot of my physical problems, like my obesity, has stemmed from that, and just trying to deal with it and eating the pain away, so to speak. And so, clearing all this junk out of my spirit has enabled me to start to come back to a reset form of who I am as a person. And a lot of the lyrics are about that, skies full of coal, dark clouds, if you wake up every day and you hate your life, it's, it can be awful. And there's been times when I've considered the ultimate sacrifice, they call, killing yourself. I've considered that many times throughout my life, but thankfully I never followed through with it. And music has helped me through that. And towards the end of the record, I think it starts to become more positive. And that's the point, is that's been my journey, is that there are no big deals. And I don't listen to the negative self-talk anymore. I can recognize it and go, thanks for that, but go fuck off.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, thank you for, being very candid about that, because I think that's something that has come to light more so in the last 5, 10, 15 years with mental health. Something that when I grew up, and I'm sure when you grew up, it was something that was not talked about a lot, especially with men. Like, oh, if you see a counselor, you're crazy. There's something wrong with you. And now it's coming out that, we're all human. We all go through these ups and downs, some worse than others, but there really isn't any shame in trying to work through that. And I don't care who you are. I mean, this is like 350 episodes, and I've interviewed some of the most successful musicians and actors and stuff. Everybody's got problems. Like, nobody's perfect. So
you cut out for a second. I'm sorry. Couldn't hear you.
Yeah. I was just saying how, I appreciate how you're able to open up about these things and shine a light on the mental health stuff that I think is very common for most people, most humans.
I agree. And it is very important. I grew up with a military mother and father, and my dad was just like, man up, uh, you know, boys don't cry, be a man, the whole time. And suppressing emotions as a human is not a good thing to do. And it can well up, and it can create all kinds of clogs in your spirit, your psyche, your chakras. It can create a lot of physical problems. That's the way it manifested in me, as well as the mental. So it's okay to let your emotions come out, And at the end of the day, we are just human beings. We're having an experience as being human, and we are spirits. We are spiritual beings. We're not having it's just important to realize that, and it's okay to have downtime, times that are not 100% happy all the time. I mean, I don't think anybody has that. And I think that social media has made a big lie for a lot of people. Especially, I feel bad for younger girls and women because they see all these people, putting videos up of how great their life is, and they look great and they feel great, and all the boys desire them and everything. And it's like, that's not reality for people. We're all different body shapes, and it's not real. None of
Yeah.
that shit's real.
I saw some article, I think I posted on Facebook. It was about social media with young people and how the depression rates have skyrocketed since the rise of social media, and just how people are becoming depressed, going on exactly what you said. Look at these things that are not real. You're seeing like an altered side. A lot of it is filters, and then a lot of it is like they're just showing you the best stuff, their best angles, their best times. You're not seeing the
Yeah,
whole person's life, which if you saw every person's life, there's going to be ups and downs and high points and low points, just like everybody.
absolutely. And that's important to realize that, especially for younger people. I mean, aside from the dangers of being data mined and exploited for all these bots that are out there, it's not healthy at all. And you compare yourself to other things. It's like, well, why can't I? And then that creates a whole horrific hell scene in your psyche that prevents you from being happy in the present moment with what you have and where you're at. Because really, when you come down to it, that's all we have is right this second. There's nothing else out there.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, so this album, I mean, it's so like you said, some of those lyrics, can't seem to find the shining clouds, only skies full of coal and morning souls. I mean, it's just so odes to horrible dreams on this dark side of town and the fire we burn, watching time drip like molasses. I mean, this is like some really dark imagery that's really cool to listen to, and especially how you've got it like a spoken words, because there's a lot of times you listen to a song and you can't understand the lyrics. I mean, we could talk about Nirvana for that one, but I mean, you've got the spoken word, you can hear the lyrics very clearly, and it really makes you like take it in more.
Sure. I think that's important too, is like, if you have a worthy message, that you should make it obvious and clear to anybody who wants to find it.
Yeah. How
I
does that,
worked on I worked on my speech because I slur my speech a lot. I speak pretty fast, Pacific Northwesterner, and I got a drawl to it, and I sound like a hick sometimes, and I got a lisp because I got weird teeth, but it is what it is. So I got to work on that shit.
yeah, I didn't notice that on the album at all, but it's interesting too. So like, is it the second song is Odes to Horrible Dreams? It kind of continues from the first song, and even doesn't have some of the same lyrics, like the sky full of coal and morning soul. Like all those lines are, it kind of like blends into the first and second song blend into each other, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. This was written as to be a one continuous piece of music, and when I finished it, it was actually 55 minutes long.
Hmm.
And that's the way I intended it. And I realized that if I'm going to put out vinyl and have the maximum groove size for each side, I had to cut it down. So I made it 40 minutes long, chopped up about 15 minutes out of the song, and that way I could fit 20 minutes per side on vinyl, and it would sound sonically correct as to what I intended. And then you get into digital media and streaming, and streaming doesn't like file sizes that are larger than 10 minutes at most. So I had to cut it down and put markers in. That's essentially what I did. Is I go, okay, well, I can transition this here,
Hmm.
or separate it and make it a new song, and hopefully message is carried anyway. And I think if you do listen to the digital version, it is full. There are no gaps, and you can't experience it as a whole, the whole deal, without hearing breaks, which is what it was intended to be. 45, 55 minutes of music.
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, because it does, it goes through ups and downs. And then like the machine noises sing that part where the vocals get more kind of elaborate, the drum, and you actually have like drums and guitars. And do you do everything on this album? I know you play the drums and you sing, and you do the pianos and the synths and the guitars. And
Yeah,
bass?
everything.
Everything.
I've done that since my first solo record, Incineration Ceremony. That's been all me, with the exception of some guest players here and there. But yeah, Forgotten Sciences is all this guy.
Yeah. And then I think that the last song is Truth, right? And that one's really interesting. Talk about that song, because that's like not just synthesizer. That's like a real, or it sounds like a real piano. That's kind of more of a sad song as well. It kind of has, like, to me, it had like a Pink Floyd vibe to it.
Oh wow, I appreciate that comparison, and I love Pink Floyd, so I'm glad that you recognize that. Yeah, there's some Wurlitzer in there, and some Mellotron, and I think overall the message towards the end is positive, but it's open to the interpreter. I think I was basically saying that the only thing that remains is the truth, is that I'm not all these horrible things that I tell myself on a regular basis, through the strange abuses that I had from my military father and mother. And it's just psychological abuse. It wasn't really physical. But I know I'm not alone to that, and I'm not unique. I mean, there's been, people aren't really cut out for being parents, and certainly I don't think my father was. And he comes from a long line of Irish drunks, so there's probably some genetic darkness that I've inherited. Lucky me, from all that.
Yeah. Well,
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, when you say people aren't cut out to be parents, that's interesting. Because I used to be a school counselor, and so I used to see all these families, rich and poor, middle class. I mean, it didn't really matter how much money people had or were their bad. I mean, you just saw a lot of errors in parenting. Like you start to learn and see it over time, like the style of parenting that works well, and then the style that doesn't. And there's just a lot of mistakes. I think people are lost. There's no handbook or guide to being a parent. So I think people are just kind of winging it, and sometimes it doesn't work out very well. And kids suffer for sure. I mean, they're resilient, but you can see the pain. I had so many kids in my office break down and cry, and I mean, you could just see it with the parents too. It was sad. It's sad to see.
Yeah, and that can be carried genetically. That they're proving that all that trauma over a period of many generations can be carried over.
Right.
And, it's kind of horrific to think about. And, at the bottom line is that humans are humans, and they make mistakes. And some people should never have children, and some people had them, and it was an accident, and they followed through because it's the thing to do. And, tried the best they can. And that, I don't have any ill will towards my upbringing. In fact, I'm glad it happened the way it did, because it shaped me into what I'm doing now, and being able to realize certain things about myself, to become a better human being.
Yeah. So what is the goal with this record? Is it kind of just to spread this message of hope and working through this? But also, I think, don't you want to try to maybe get it on some soundtracks and things like that?
Well, yeah. First, you touched on it. Is I wanted this record to draw attention to that. It's okay to not be okay, and to realize that you are not okay, and to seek help. That's pretty much the first thing, and that's what I did. Is I never thought I'd be a guy that would go and see a mental health professional, because my ego wouldn't let me in the past. I'm like, oh, fuck, that's ridiculous. That's for weak people. Well, guess what? Uh, I wound up being one of those people that needed it. And I'm not saying everybody does, but it helped me. And I just want people to know that if their life isn't the way they think it should be, that they could seek other avenues, and they don't have to keep repeating the same thoughts and ill experiences that they have. They can choose another way, and they may need help with it. And that's all that was about. Second part of that question you asked is I've been moving towards sound for picture and soundtracks for movie and TV for a long time now, ever since the first solo record, Incineration Ceremony. And that's where I want to go now. That's where my heart is really excited. And I've started doing that, and I did a score for a trailer for a stop motion movie thing created by a famous rock photographer by the name of Michael Levine. And the name of it is The Dark Odyssey. And I did the trailer for The Dark Odyssey 2. And as a result of doing that, he's going to have me work on the next iteration, whenever that is. I mean, this guy's a genius. He's done all this stuff himself. It's a sci-fi thing. He did all the set design, the costumes for the characters, created his own language for this thing, so it's subtitled, but it's just amazing, and it suspends reality for me. I can go into this place where I can have complete peace and ease because I love sci-fi and I love music, so there's two wins right off the bat. And then coming up, I'm going to be working on a soundtrack for a new kind of horror film. That's what they're calling it. It's called Kara, and it's made in the UK by a director, Hayden Hewitt, and he's had a few films that he's made, but this is going to be a departure from what he usually does. I mean, he kind of does new stuff every time, but his production company is Black Octopus Productions out of the UK, and I'm going to be starting the soundtrack work for that probably this month, and I'm really excited about that. And that's where I want to go. I can do soundtrack for pretty much any style, but where my passion lies is in sci-fi and horror. So I've got two of them down, and I only see more coming this way. So I'm really happy about that. It's fun.
Yeah, no, I love sci-fi and horror. Those are probably two of my favorite genres. I also, oddly, I love comedy too, but it's not as many good comedies coming out. Lots of great sci-fi horror stuff coming out these days. Have you seen that Silo show? I don't know if you've seen that one.
Oh yeah. That one's great.
Isn't that
people
great?
Living in the strange tunnel under the ground, and
I could see you do. I mean, they've already got a score for that, but something like that your music would be perfect for that kind of thing. So I'm curious to see what these projects that you've got coming out. And I think you had one that was called, was it Fundamentally Cynical? Which I love that title. You did the soundtrack for that one too, right?
Yeah, I've done a few of the soundtracks for that. It's from a creative genius from back east, a younger guy, Preston Hazard, and that was a animation that was on Amazon for quite a while, and now he's doing it on the IFC or one of those things. But he's doing a bunch of stuff, and he's got a really great future ahead of him too. So it's been really fun to work with him on Fundamentally Cynical.
Yeah, so that makes sense. That's kind of where your passion is now, because I know everyone always asks you about TAD reunions and stuff, and you just have no interest in that. And it makes sense because this is your passion now. You've kind of already done the TAD thing.
Yeah, I'm moving towards what makes my heart sing instead of rehashing the past. And I think that the guys in the band TAD, as well as brothers, Brothers of the Sonic Cloth have left a legacy, and I'm very proud of it. And it's time to move in a new direction. I always want to be creating new stuff and challenge myself musically to do new things.
Yeah, you did kind of reunite in 2009, or you performed some of the songs from Tad, right?
Yeah, there's a few songs we did, and I brought Gary Thorstensen, the original Tad guitar player, on with me on stage as well, and we played a few Tad songs as well as Brothers songs, and it was more an excuse to just get a gig for the Brothers, and it was a happy thing to be able to reunite with Gary in that way.
So what was it like? Because I mean, I guess that was still like 14 years ago, but you had a little bit of a taste. Was it you didn't get hungry to go? Maybe we should do a few more shows. You just said, "Nah, that was enough."
Well, that's an interesting question, and the way I feel about it is that I think I'm a different person than I was then, and I don't know if I'm in the same space mentally with the thought process that I was going through with the band Tad, and I think for me that I don't want to spend all this time and energy to relearn songs that we did, and I think to a degree we would be diminishing the legacy that we left with the energy that we had behind the music then, as opposed to now, and I think a lot of bands could learn from that thought instead of doing, I've never been into it for the money, obviously. It's like, of course, we've been offered really big shows and big money to reunite, but it just doesn't entice me. That's not why I do this. I do it because it makes my heart sing when I do it. And that's not where my heart is anymore. So I think a lot of bands, like, I'm not diminishing what other bands do, but a few of them have reunions, and it's like, God, maybe you should have left it alone.
No, I definitely see that. I agree. There's definitely some where you're like, and especially when there's like one original member and it's like the keyboard player or something. You're like, how is this? This isn't really the band anymore. It's like it's like a cover band almost.
Yeah. And that comes down to, the business of music, how can we make money? How can we exploit this? How can we sell merch? You know, and that's never been what it's been about for me with music. It's a deeper, more spiritual experience for me than profits and ego.
Yeah, and you have enough with all this other work that you're doing that you don't have to take that gig. You don't have to go and do the reunion just to make money.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And also, I wouldn't be happy doing that. That's not where I'm at now.
Yeah. Well, when you look back on those memories, there's got to be some good memories of those days. I mean, it was just such a iconic time in music history, that whole Seattle scene.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's some decent archivists who have captured some of that, and you can see it on YouTube and here, there, and different other places. But I think the albums speak for themselves, and they're still available, and that's a plus.
No, I know that's so amazing because I'm just now discovering you guys. Like I remember, obviously I grew up in Seattle. I'd heard of Tad. I was like, oh yeah, I'd probably heard a couple songs or something and had vaguely heard of you guys, but didn't really know the band that well. Then now I can go on, and I know artists hate streaming. I understand that. I totally get it. But for me, it's really cool because I can go back and I can listen to all your old songs and I'm like, oh, these are great. How did I miss this band? Like it's so, and it's an interesting story with that band. Just like, there was lawsuits and there was record label changes and all this stuff that it's almost like it was the perfect storm of just bad luck, which I don't usually say with bands.
Or you could say it was a perfect storm of good luck, depending on how you look at it. And I'm not, I'm with you on that. The thing that I hate the thought of Spotify making so much money off of artists. But at the same time, my wife bought a family plan, and I've discovered a lot of music that I wouldn't normally have had. I wouldn't buy Spotify myself. I think it's an abomination and insulting to musical artists everywhere. But I've discovered a lot of stuff that I've never would have found any other way. So I like streaming in that aspect. So that's where I'm at with that.
Yeah, I think the thing with streaming is like I love the idea that I can discover other artists, but yeah, I just don't like the fact that you guys are not getting paid what you should. And I wouldn't mind paying more for my Spotify. I mean, I would pay a lot more because I'm getting a lot of music. I know probably some people don't listen to music and podcasts as much as I do, but I listen to it all the time. And so I would feel fine paying more. What I do try to do is I try to support bands when I do discover them. I try to support them by buying merch or going to see a show. Obviously I can't see a Tad show, but I would see your solo stuff or whatever you're doing. If you had you're not going to do live shows for this, are you, for your solo stuff?
No, that's not something that's in the works right now. There has been talk, and I've been offered certain things to do, but again, that's a lot of work that would bog me down from creating more new things. And I like to stay. I like to keep moving and not be bogged down by something like a live show and having to show people a bunch of things the way I want them done. So, I mean, I might have some improv shows that I'll do with friends eventually down the road, but at this point, no, I'm perfectly happy creating in the studio and releasing things and letting it go out that way.
Yeah, because I love live music, and it's interesting. Like growing up in Seattle in the '90s, like do you talk about some of the venues back then? Because it was just so cool. There was, I mean, some of them are still around, like the Crocodile Cafe and the Showbox and the Paramount. But I remember like there was a place, there was like a laundromat, and it was called Sit and Spin, and they had music. Like,
Yep.
do you remember some of those other like kind of lesser known venues?
Oh yeah, there was quite a few, and I'm trying to remember them. There was a place called the Vogue
Yeah.
that was down on First Avenue in Virginia, and it was basically like a small dance club. And they had live music as something to keep the bartenders busy on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And otherwise, it was basically a draw of like for dancing and disco type of music. But there was that, and then there was a place called Graven Image in the early days of Seattle that was more gothic and punk stuff. And then there was quite a few venues that I can't even remember the name of. There was a all ages place over on 12th and Jackson that a lot of hardcore shows would happen, and then there was a few places on Fifth Avenue underneath the monorail, but they're all really small clubs. And Funhouse, which has survived, it's moved into a place called El Corazon now, but it used to be its own punk rock place that was over there on Fifth Avenue, kind of by the Seattle Center. But yeah, I mean, the Central Tavern is still around, and there's still bands playing there. Um, but yeah, I mean, Seattle has always been rich with music, and to be honest, the city council and the government here has always tried to make it as hard as possible on musicians and artists because they thought it was the hotbed of corrupted youth, which it might be.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many other Seattle. I mean, obviously people know like the Nirvanas and Alice in Chains and stuff, but there was a lot of really cool bands that are a little lesser known that are like Mudhoney and the Melvins and Grunt Truck and stuff like that. I mean, I'm assuming that you connected with all those guys back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. They're all good people. I still keep in contact with a few of them, and it's always good to see. Melvins have been in it for a long time. They've been around. I remember going to see them at a punk rock club in Boise called the Crazy House, and they played there in '82, and they're still killing it to this day, and still making amazing music and heavy as all get out. Um, but yeah, there's lots of music out here, and there always has been, and there always will be,
Yeah.
despite the city council
Just,
and the government.
yeah. I had and I'm sure you guys toured with Sweetwater, which I had the singer of that band on my show because I love that band. I thought they were so underrated, so melodic, and they just for whatever reason they didn't make it as big as I thought they should have. But you toured with them and Alice in Chains. I mean, I wish I had a time machine because that sounds like an amazing show. The three of you guys, that must have been some fun times.
It was some fun times, and they're all really good guys, and had a blast with Alice in Chains and the Sweetwater guys. It was looking back on it, it was an amazing, magical time, and I got to be there. I'm lucky that way.
Yeah, and you did Bumper Shoot, which if you're from Seattle, you've heard of Bumper Shoot. If you're not, you probably haven't. But I'm trying to remember. That was '96. You played it, and was it free then? Because it used to be a free show, and now it's grown into this giant thing that I probably couldn't even afford it if I wanted to. But what was it like playing that in '96?
Well, to be honest, I don't remember playing it, and I'm sure we did, but I was still practicing different things with mind-altering, mood-altering substances at that point. So I don't really remember it.
Yeah.
I do remember vaguely being there and playing a show, and it was a good time. But yeah, I have a lot of memories of touring with Soundgarden and Alice in Chains, and yeah, it was good.
Yeah, you toured with Soundgarden in 11. That sounds like a really fun time. That was in '94 when Soundgarden was blowing up. I think that was right around Super Unknown or, yeah, that must have been a really fun. That was when you guys were on a major label, which it was crazy because you were on a major label and then like whatever reason they dropped you. And then you actually got a second major label contract, which I think is pretty rare in the music business, isn't it?
Yeah, and then we actually had a third as well.
Oh, was there a third?
Yeah, there was originally it was let's see, I think it was Giant Warner,
Yeah.
and then we went on to God, who was it?
Well, the Inhaler was on, okay. Giant Records dropped it. And then, Futurist Records that's not major, is it?
No, that
East
wasn't
West
major,
Electra. And then
yeah, there was East West, yeah.
Up
Maybe
Records.
it's just two.
Okay. Yeah. And then you also tell me about, do you have memories of this one? When you were in the movie Singles, I have to go back and rewatch that and see which part you had.
Well, I had a real small part, and Cameron Crowe saw fit to include me in that as some guy in a trailer park because I kind of fit the part for the ethos that was happening with the band Tad, being rowdy lumberjack types. But it was just a small part where I was a wrong number for, I can't remember the major actress. Can't remember her name.
Bridget Fonda?
Yeah. She called me and she thought she was getting a hold of her dude, and it was actually wound up being me on the other line.
Oh, okay.
And so I was the wrong number, and that was fun. I was actually getting ready to go into doing some Twin Peaks too at the time. I was being auditioned for a tow truck driver for that show, and for some whatever reason I didn't get it, which is fine because I was very busy with the band Tad, and we were touring 6 to 9 months out of the year anyway.
Yeah, that would have been cool though. Twin Peaks, David Lynch. That guy's a really interesting person. Made some really interesting movies.
He is, and a lot of people don't know this about him, but he's originally from Boise, Idaho as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that where I know you went to Boise State, and I know you live in Seattle now, but are you originally from Boise or like around somewhere in Idaho or?
Yeah, no, I was originally from Boise.
Okay.
I lived there until I was 26, at which time I decided to move to Seattle with my band H Hour. And we moved to Seattle as a band, and then shortly after broke up, and I started Tad as a solo project. And then eventually I decided that it was too much work for one guy, and I enlisted the help of 3 other guys that wound up being the band Tad.
Yeah, and then you guys were originally on Subpop. Have you been to the Subpop store at the Seattle airport? I wonder what you thought of that.
I have. That's pretty fun. It's amazing, to see that happening. Uh, that they have, this little indie label that Bruce Pavitt started with his friend Jonathan Poneman that grew into such a huge thing, and they help foster a musical movement. That's they should be very proud of that, and I was glad to be a part of that. It's fun to see all those records and walk in and talk to the people working there. I actually recorded one of the guys that works there. His name's Liam, and he's in a band called So Pitted, and they were on Sub Pop as well at one point. And it's just fun to connect with a lot of the younger folk.
Yeah. What other bands, like up and coming or newer bands, are you a fan of? I'm assuming you still follow. I thought I heard you say something like you try to stay with new bands and new music. Is there bands that you want to give a shout out to here?
No, you know what? I'm not very good at that. My wife, she has her ear to the ground and on the rail for that more than I do, and she will tell me, "Hey, you should check this out," and we'll get in the car and play some songs that she finds and some bands, and I just stay so deep into creating and working with other musicians and bands at my studio that I don't really have a hell of a lot of extra time to do some discovery. But um, yeah, I'm not a very good resource for that, I guess I should say.
Are you, who are some of the people that you're working with? Cause this solo record obviously is mostly just you, but there's some projects where you're working with other people, or is this just, like you said, the guests that are sometimes on your solo records?
You mean for the stuff that I do?
Yeah. Or like what else, what do you mean collaborating? Like you're collaborating with on other projects, or you're guesting on people's stuff, or they're,
Well, no, I had my friend, a composer from back east, Peter Scartabello, played percussion on some of my incineration ceremony stuff, the first record, and we're talking about doing another collaboration. He's a really great composer of film and TV scores, and he's been doing it for a long time. I mean, I first hooked up with him back in MySpace days, believe it or not, and that's how long we've known each other. And he's become a really good friend, although we've never met in person. It's really odd. He lives way back east, and I live northwest. But yeah, I mean, there's there'll be some collaborations, but I don't know who and when. But he's probably one that I'll do again.
was there is there some musicians on your bucket list that you'd really want to collaborate with, but
That's a good loaded question. Um,
well, I'm assuming you said Pink Floyd, so there's those guys, and I'm sure that there's got to be some others that you've thought about.
yeah, I mean, I guess I'm pretty solitary in my creations. I don't really like to involve a lot of people anymore, and that's kind of become the norm for me as time goes on. I used to be more collaborative and have bands with other people, and I've always kind of been the guy that had the vision and asked people to play certain things certain ways. Um, but no, no, I can't see myself really reaching out to play with anybody. Um, it's not on my radar, I guess. I like to stay busy in my own environment and just be here at the studio and make whatever I make.
Yeah, well, you're making some great stuff, and I love that you've evolved. I think that's cool. Like when musicians, I kind of agree with you that sometimes you go, I don't. Why is this band? Why don't they try something different? Why don't they do something new? And I like that you're doing new stuff because I think I understand that I'm not musical, like I said, but if I was, and if I had a band, I feel like I would get really bored with just playing the same songs over and over for 20, 30, 40 years. I would be like, okay, I got to do something different.
Right, absolutely, and that's where I'm at. I've never, I think I've deviated from the form of music that's traditional as far as verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, verse, ending, outro, all that shit. And I like it to be more nebulous and interwoven, which I think is the way in it. Forgotten Sciences is. There's not really a noticeable section. I mean, I like things to be chaos, in a lot of ways, but be organized in a way. And I think that Forgotten Sciences is pretty much a musical fractal. That's the way I would describe it to somebody.
A musical what? Say that again.
A musical fractal.
Fractal. Okay. What is that? I don't know that word.
Well, it's if you look it up, it's kind of like a repetition that's interwoven with other things at different speeds. Musically, this is the way I'm thinking of it, at least. You could look at a leaf on a tree, and it's basically a fractal of itself. There's many. Just have fun. Look it up.
Okay.
See what you discover.
No, that makes sense. All right. Very cool. Well, yeah, no, I like the new stuff. I'm glad that I've finally discovered Tad. I'm a little late on the bandwagon on that one, but it's good stuff too. And I look forward to seeing what you do with these soundtracks, because I love horror sci-fi. So I think your stuff would fit perfectly with that. I think it'd be really cool to see that. And it's something that it's a little bit different too. It's not going to just be the typical score that you hear in movies and TV. If it continues on the Forgotten Sciences path, at least.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought of a good example of a fractal. There's a broccoli that you can find in the store, and it has really uniform spirals to it. You ever seen that thing?
No, I don't think so.
Well, they're out there. You can find them, but it's basically like you find that. Well, just look up fractal. You'll get into it.
I'll check out both of those things, and people need to check out the new album. And then I always end every episode promoting a charity. I hope your publicist told you that's you should have something ready. If you don't, we
absolutely.
Oh, you do?
I
okay,
do. Good. It's the American Cancer Society, and it's I think the website is cancer. Let me find it. I had it picked out.
Yeah, I'm sure that I can. That'll be the first thing if I Google it. I'm sure I can get that. I'll put that website in
it's cancer.org.
Yeah.
And /donate.
Perfect. Okay. I'll put that in the show notes along with your website, and people can check out the new album now. Can they get the new album on vinyl?
Yes, they can. If you go to taddoyle.com, you can go down to the bottom of the first page, and it has social links. It's available on MVD audio, and you can also go to my Instagram, and it'll have a link tree link to all things that I'm involved with.
Yeah, that's right. I'll follow you on Instagram. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for doing this. Great stuff. And keep us posted if there's new things you have to promote.
Yeah, totally. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Chuck.
All right. You too, Tad. I'll see you later.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Great stuff from Tad Doyle, or Thomas Andrew Doyle, as he goes by for his new solo music. Make sure to check out his latest record and check out all his stuff. He's made a lot of great music over the years with Tad, the solo stuff, and other bands. And make sure to follow him on social media. I know he's on Twitter and Instagram, and you can check out his website in the show notes for more information. I appreciate your support for our guests, and you can support the show in much the same way. Follow us on social media, like, comment, and share, and make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel for the full video versions of these interviews, plus exclusive other content that is 100% free at the moment. Thanks for sticking with us. Have a great rest of your day, and shoot for the moon.